All right, let's give you an update now to that shooting in Lancaster, Pennsylvania we told you about yesterday. That knife-wielding man's sister now coming forward with more actions and information. Riverside Munoz says that her brother is mentally ill and that the family had been trying to get him help for years. She claims that he was having an episode and was incoherent at the time. Ricardo Munoz has been diagnosed, we're told by family members, with bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. She claims that she called a crisis intervention and a non-emergency police line for help. However, she was not on the scene at her mother's house when she made the call. We wanted to update you on the LA County shooting that happened as well. I'm sure you've seen this video by now. The female and the male officer that were shot in cold blood in the face, just ambushed in Compton. They've now identified her as Claudio Apolinar. The deputy had saved the life of her 24-year-old partner by creating a tourniquet for him before medics could arrive on the scene. They were both shot close range while simply just sitting in their car. And we're going to talk more about that with our first guest coming up here in just a moment. Now over to Ohio, Little Miami High School. They have suspended 2 of their football players. Why? For simply carrying the thin blue line flag. That's right. Bradley Williams and Jared Bentley were suspended for civil disobedience. The boys simply asked, can we carry the law enforcement and the firefighter flags, you know, the one that has the thin blue line and the red blue line. They wanted to carry them out on the field for their football game. They were told by the administration of their school, no. Little Miami High School said in a statement to a local news station there that Little Miami High School is saddened to see this story take such a negative turn. While we understand these students' desire to show their support for our first responders, they did not obtain permission from district officials. Patriot Night, as it was called, was there to honor and memorialize victims of 9/11, and they did raise the American flag during the game. But think about this just for a minute, folks. So you have a 9/11 Memorial Night. You raise the American flag. Some patriotic kids want to carry out the blue line and the red line flag to honor first responders who rushed in while others rushed out at 9/11. And they're told they couldn't because they didn't get permission? Alrighty, let's head to Sacramento, California. An anti-Trump protester jumps onto a CHP cruiser as the protesters surrounded CHP vehicles. Well, they gave him plenty of warning. They honked the horn. They had the sirens. Then things got a little hectic. The officer tried to drive away, and you're going to see in the video, the protester literally climbs up on the car and then is thrown off the vehicle. This happened outside of the McClellan Airport in Sacramento. That is where President Trump was yesterday, of course, talking with Governor Newsom about the fires. Now, Jody Hernandez, a local camera crew, happened to catch the whole thing on camera. She was rolling when it happened. Just insane. Speaking about law enforcement, as you can tell as we opened up the show, this is all about law enforcement and how they're being treated. So my first guest tonight is a California sheriff. He supervises more than 3,600 personnel. It's one of the largest and most progressive law enforcement agencies in the nation, and he happens to be a good friend of mine too. Sheriff Chad Bianco joining me live from Riverside, California. Chad, the beard looks good. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, man.
I heard you're allowing the deputies to have beards if they like. You heard all these stories that we just kicked the show off of, from protesters jumping on cop cars. Obviously, you've seen the video. You've probably reached out to Sheriff Villanueva in Los Angeles and spoke to him about his 2 deputies that were shot, point blank, ambushed. Just before we get into it, tell me, as a veteran cop, you've been on the force for decades, how does it make you feel when you see what's happening to law enforcement officers across our nation?
You know, it's very disheartening. It's hard to watch. It's hard to see. It's hard to listen to. We do know, though, that the vast majority of our population, especially our Riverside County residents, are in complete support of our sheriff's department and of our law enforcement professionals. And we know that it's that minority, that loud minority that is getting all the press coverage and getting the anti-police sentiment throughout the country. And we try and do our best to ignore it, but it's getting old and it's fueling things like this in LA. And it's very, very unfortunate.
Chad, I want to touch on the defund police movement that's been going on for the last several months. You have several city councils across the country that have already voted to defund. You have this now becoming a part of the movement that Antifa and BLM are backing. And in the same reference, they're saying, well, officers need to be retrained to learn how to de-escalate things. How do you defund while trying to retrain? Does that even make sense?
No, it doesn't make sense at all. And this is really, you have to really get a deep down dive as to why this is happening and what it is. And the bottom line is as natural as you want to get. Law enforcement is what stands between the good and the bad. And it stands between whether or not we really stay a free country or whether or not we become a socialist or something else, or we change America. We don't want to change America. America is the greatest country in the world. And law enforcement, a free law enforcement to go out and uphold laws, stands in the way of the progressive movement of changing America. So no one's saying that we don't need to make things better, but changing is not the answer, even close.
Chad, I'm glad you said that. That's exactly where I was going to go next, talking about this literally abolishing police. How would we move forward in a free, democratic society without law and order? I don't even get where these anarchists are coming up with this stuff. They think they have a social worker go out and talk some guy down who's hell-bent on killing his wife or doing whatever because it's a domestic call, and think that a social worker will be able to talk somebody down like that. You've been on those calls. I've covered those calls. We're going to talk about here in a second with you and my next guest about when the two Palm Springs officers were killed in California back about 4 years ago, and how that was a domestic call. Lots of these calls are domestic calls. You have to have someone in uniform with weapons to a lot of times handle the situation, and just talking doesn't work. I'm not saying we shouldn't try that and have empathy for folks, especially if they have, like the gentleman in Lancaster we're finding out now, was bipolar, schizophrenic. Of course that. But if officers don't have that information ahead of time, how would they know?
Right. And truly, especially here in California, every single law enforcement officer goes through training for de-escalation. When we arrive at a scene, we want it to end peacefully. We want to de-escalate. We want to make sure that we get out of there with no injuries to us or to whoever it is that's at the scene. And the way it's made out that we're not is just dishonest. It's not being real with America. And it's unfortunate that agenda and that mantra is just being repeated when it isn't reality.
Yeah, you know, I talked to a lot of my cop buddies, and you and I have chatted before. Nobody hates bad cops worse than cops. I'm sure that when there's exactly a bad doctor that botches surgeries, doctors would be speaking out against him to get him disbarred. Lawyers, same thing. Nobody wants a crooked lawyer. I mean, I just don't understand this whole mindset coming from the left. And again, a lot of times it is just those loudest voices in the room. But the problem is, I see the mainstream media, Chad, is giving them all the airtime. So the folks that are Democrats, that are Libertarians, Independents, and Republicans, that are more in the middle of the road, that support you guys back in the blue, wearing the badge, are going, this is nonsense. But what America sees on social media and on television every night is cops are bad, and all these protesters ganging up on you guys. How do you psychologically deal with it every day, and what are you telling your deputies so they can get through their 9, 10, 12-hour shift?
Well, this is a daily occurrence. This is a daily something that we have to worry about every single day, twice a day when we have our briefings and our shifts. We have to tell them that we're all behind them. They have to know that we are supporting them, that we are not going to cower to the politically correctness and to the political mindset. We are here for law and order. We are here to keep people safe, and we will be behind them while they go out there and try and do that job. We reinforce that the majority of the public is behind us, that they support us. And, you know, it's about keeping everybody with a good attitude, because, you know, you sometimes you have to ask yourself, with all that's going on, and that's all you hear. Why are they doing it? Why would you want to subject yourself to this?
Why would you even say the phrase defund police? And I'd like to, before we wrap up here, it reminds me of something that our vice presidential candidate and former attorney general of the state of California said when she was running for president, said something about, we know where all these Trump supporters are, and when we get in office, we're going to come after you. So as a threat like that, I wonder if there could be a database where everyone that has said defund the police or four-letter words towards pigs or anything like that, they don't want cops, if we can put them in a database and maybe restrict their phones from ever dialing 911. Do you think that would work? I'm sure they will never need 911 in their life, right?
Yeah, then they would label you a racist and a bigot and whatever else names they want to call us, that we're all afraid of being called a name.
Yeah.
And
I
think it's
may
going
break
to
my
get better.
bones. Yeah. We don't need the PC police. We need police and officers like you guys that are out there keeping us safe. Chad Bianco, he is the sheriff in Riverside, California, county there. Big department, a lot on your shoulders. Chad, your men and women, stay safe out there.
Thank you, Dan.
Pass our thoughts and prayers along to Sheriff Villanueva out in Los Angeles. I know that he's got those 2 deputies. They're watching them closely. Have you heard any update, by the way, on their condition when you talk to him?
They're doing fine. It's a long recovery. I want to congratulate them, their department, for how they've handled this whole thing. Sheriff Villanueva is doing a fantastic job right now. He's really leading that department right now, and they need it at this time.
Yeah.
The deputies are going to be fine. I think it's going to be a long, painful recovery, but our hearts and prayers go out to them. Yep.
And Chad, real quick, because I got to say this, our next guest is Frank Vega. You know Frank well. That's the brother of Officer Gil Vega, who was gunned down cold blood in Palm Springs, California back in 2016, along with his young partner, Leslie Zarebny. He's coming on next to talk about the pain and suffering his family's gone through since his brother was killed in the line of duty. He says you look better with the mustache, not the beard. Chad, thanks for joining us. Come back on the show anytime.
Will do. Thanks, Dan. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Straight ahead on Real America, as officers across the nation are under constant attack, we will be speaking with the brother of a California police officer who was gunned down in the line of duty along with his partner. You will want to hear from him. Don't you go away.